Lawmakers wanted to know how Russian-backed propaganda spread unnoticed.
I think we know two things at this point, right? One thing is there were clearly attempts, Russian attempts, to get involved in the 2016 US presidential elections. And so we have reports by intelligence reports. We have all sorts of things that have been released by Twitter to the public about Russian troll accounts. We have, accounts, advertising accounts, things that were bought on Facebook. So the idea that there was an attempt by Russia to be active in the context of US domestic politics around the 2016 elections, I think is fairly indisputable at this point. We don't know what the impact of these attempts were on the outcome of the 2016 elections. And quite frankly, we'll probably never know what the impact was. So we can start from a couple different angles, right? We can start from the angle of, was there an attempt to inject information into the political discussion? Yes, we think there was an attempt. We think we have lots of documented evidence of this now. We have conclusions from US intelligence agencies, from the social media platforms themselves. But as social scientists, we have to start to ask questions about, well, how do we think they change votes? So there's essentially two ways this could happen. One is you could convince people who were Hillary Clinton supporters to support Donald Trump. Well, most people who were Democrats supported Hillary Clinton, right? And so the question then becomes, okay, what do we need to do to actually change someone who's a supporter of Hillary Clinton to become a supporter of Donald Trump? At that point, we start to get into big questions that we don't know the answer to about exposure. Right? So there's one study by Matt Genskow and Hunt Alcott, for example, that estimates that the average American saw like 1.2 fake news stories, right? So if we're in that world where, the average person is exposed to 1-2 instances of Russian-sponsored propaganda, as compared to the hundreds of thousands of instances they're getting just normally, then it's really hard to argue that this 1 or 2 instances of this will actually have an impact. Now, there are other ways that this kind of information could have had an effect. One thing that's been discussed is whether it may have discouraged turnout among supporters of Hillary Clinton. Another thing that has been suggested is whether there might be some people who were on the edge who had pushed in one direction as opposed to pushing the other direction. The bottom line is we don't know the answer to that question right now.
When we recently uncovered this activity, we provided that information to the special counsel.
There's a few things that we can talk about. One that we found is that, first of all, these IRA accounts tended to post towards what we will call low-quality websites. We also found that these IRA accounts were sort of twice as likely to be talking about Donald Trump than they were to be talking about Hillary Clinton. Now, one of the most interesting things we found that we've never seen anybody discuss previously is that these IRA accounts were much more likely to be sharing news from local media sources. So 10 times as likely to share local media sources as were the sort of our random groups of Twitter users. Now, the interesting thing is they were sharing local media sources, but it was local media sources talking about national politics. So what we think is there is some data to suggest that Americans trust local media sources more than they trust national mainstream news. So there's a potential here that they were trying to sort of harness the fact that Americans trust local media sources to spread the kind of information at the national level that they wanted to spread at the national level. I think the lasting impact of Russia attempting to meddle in US elections is not so much that Russia is going to go around and disrupt elections around the world, or even that Russia is still going to come and disrupt the 2018 US elections, but that the cat's out of the bag in that there was a toolkit that was set up and there was a set of playbooks of things you could try to do and ways you could try to use online media. So to me, I get worried that the red herring is that we're focusing all our effort on how can we keep out foreign interference on these platforms, right? But now what Russia really has shown is a set of tools, right? That you can set up fake, if you can set up fake accounts, but that you can feed news, you can use ads to sort of target news at particular people, you can use disinformation, in particular ways. And the people who really have the incentive to do this are the domestic political actors. So I don't know if Russia is going to meddle in the 2018 elections. There are people you can ask, these forensic people at the platforms, who can probably give you good answers to that. In the aftermath, hopefully, we'll know something about it. We have some digital footprints from 2016. We can now try to learn things. We know we're all looking for things right now. All of us who are researchers, there are specific things that we're going out and looking for, and we're trying to mine the data from 2016 to get even better at looking for things in 2018 and 2020. But what I'm sure of is that there are plenty of domestic actors who are going to try to take pages out of this playbook. What scares me more about fake news is not that people see fake news and believe it's true, but that people see true news and are no longer able to know it's true.